You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
As we get started on episode number 98 of the Show Before the Show podcast, there is baseball being played in Arizona. The Diamondbacks are taking on Grand Canyon University today, and baseball season's here, man.
Yeah, yes,
real
it is.
Live baseball season in which professionals play against college teams.
It's actually relevant to our interest too, because Anthony Banda, the top D-back prospect, was pitching in that game.
Right.
Was hitting, mid-90s pretty consistently. He only threw one inning, so you take that whatever you want. But, threw 11 of his 19 pitches for strikes. It feels like good to actually report something new, not just like, here's what we're doing looking back at 2016 or what our outlook is for 2017. Like, let's stay in the present. And the present involves baseball. That just feels good to say.
Finally. So episode number 98 of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB is here. I am Tyler Vaughn. He is Sam Dykstra. And we're ready to roll for spring training. Sam and I are going to be headed down to Florida and Arizona, respectively, in about 2 weeks. Josh and I finally got a place booked. Josh Jackson will be down there with me as well, in the Phoenix area. It went down to the wire, but we did find a place to stay, so that's very exciting.
It wasn't the horse ranch, though.
No,
right?
It wasn't the horse ranch, which was such a bummer. We were looking at a horse
you can't
ranch.
Tease us with the horse ranch and then not come through.
Work. Then it was like way out west, past like Goodyear, I think, which is where, if I'm remembering the location of it correctly, it's way out west past Goodyear, which is the Cincinnati Reds and Cleveland Indians spring training facility, which is the farthest one out by far, and. So that would have been a pain because to go all the way to the east side of Phoenix, to go to the Scottsdale facilities or Southeast, Mesa, Tempe, those places, it would have been like an hour's drive, which I guess, in the context of you being in Florida, really isn't anything that I should complain about, but I'm okay with us not being in the horse ranch. We're going to be in the Coronado neighborhood of Phoenix, which is awesome. And it's actually the place that I've stayed every trip I've taken now. This will be my third spring training trip, and I've done 2 Arizona Fall League trips, and I've stayed in that Coronado neighborhood every time. So if you're planning on going to Phoenix, the Phoenix area for spring training, hit up the Coronado neighborhood. Awesome coffee shops, great restaurants. There's some cool theaters and stuff. It's a very neat little cultural hub, and it's central to basically everything in the Phoenix area. And Sam is headed down to Florida for spring training in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Not even 2 weeks for you, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying, if I could have stayed at like a gator farm, it would have added maybe half an hour of my commute to like Clearwater or Tampa or something, I would have taken the opportunity. So y'all can say whatever you want about not staying at the horse ranch. There would have been some fun stories, but
this would have been far deadlier to be hanging out on a gator ranch.
I was trying to think of like what the Florida equivalent is.
Yeah,
it's probably that, and I probably offended many Floridians by
everything
doing that.
in Florida is deadlier, obviously, as we all
know.
Oh,
of course. It's the Australia of the United States.
Florida man angrily emails podcast will be the next. No, I actually learned the difference, how you can tell the difference between crocodiles and alligators yesterday. My niece is in town, and we went to the Denver Zoo, and in the Tropical Discovery exhibit, they had a thing about the differences between crocodiles and alligators. And crocodiles, you can see the tooth coming up out of the bottom jaw and the tooth going down out of the top jaw. That's how I'm going to remember that. Those are crocodiles. Alligators, you can only see one.
Okay.
So now we know. So when you're down there, keep that in mind.
I will definitely keep that in mind.
You'll say, I can only see one of these teeth. I'm being eaten by an alligator.
I was going to say that determines my method of attack, I guess, or defense, depending on how I'm feeling that day. But whether it's a gator or a croc, I'll now know. Thank you for that.
Crocs, also terrible shoes. So with that, episode 98 is underway, and before we get started on 3 strikes for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, you can find us at milb.com/podcast, as well as on iTunes and the Stitcher app. We are the Minor League Baseball podcast. We are all kinds of pumped about the feedback and the involvement we've gotten from listeners throughout our now 3 seasons as we enter 2017. That is nuts. We did get one new rating last week after we made a big ratings push on our last episode. So if you enjoy the Show Before the Show podcast, head on to iTunes or wherever else you get your podcast. Give us a rating and a review and a subscription, and we would much appreciate it. And with that, let's get started. 3 strikes for episode number 98 of the Show Before the Show. Farm system rankings underway. We are getting started on the site, ranking all 30 Major League organizations in groups of who is best where. Position players are up first, and we rolled out the top 10 on Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday, but Thursday, top 10 hits the internet presses, and there is an interesting mix of groups in the top 10 of organizations with the best position player groups in minor league baseball. I don't think there's any surprise at number 1. It's the New York Yankees. But, Sam, we were talking about these top organizations. There's really some tiers here, as it seems, even within this upper third of the best in baseball for position players.
Yeah, so it's not exactly, like one team, like kind of stacking up on top of each other. It might be a better way to think about these in terms of tiers, like Tyler said. And we would love to kind of present it that way. I think, the internet loves rankings. That's part of the reason why we do this. It's part of the reason why prospect rankings exist. Your top 100s, your top 30s, your top 20s, your top 101 if you're Baseball Prospectus, on and on and on. The internet loves ranking things, so this is kind of our way of getting into it. But when you're looking at this top 10, I'll kind of go through it 10 through 1 here. As Tyler said, the Yankees are number 1, so I guess there's no suspense there. But number 10 is the New York Mets. Number 9 is the Colorado Rockies. Number 8 is the Boston Red Sox. Number 7 is the Chicago Cubs. In terms of that top 10, that is what I would say is kind of the bottom tier of the top 10. So, take that for what it's worth. But these are all systems kind of like heavy at the top. With the Mets, you're talking about Rosario and Dominic Smith. The Rockies, you're talking about Brendan Rodgers, Raimel Tapia, who's still a prospect. The Red Sox, they have the number 1 prospect in baseball in Andrew Benintendi, and one of the best, if not the best, third base prospect in Rafael Devers, could really pop this year. The Cubs have Ian Happ and Eloy Jimenez, and Albert Almora and Heimer Candelario are ranked lower in the top 100, but they're certainly there as well. So you're looking at some more top-heavy teams here at 7 through 10, but a lot of them don't have the depth necessarily that in some of these cases that they certainly once did. I think that you could especially say that of the Cubs and Red Sox. Obviously, the Cubs graduated so much talent. The Red Sox traded a lot of it away to improve the major league roster. So that's kind of where the first tier kind of goes. I think the second tier, it starts at number 6 with the Dodgers, the Phillies at number 5, and the Pirates at number 4. Some nice depth in all of these 3 systems. I think the Dodgers obviously have a really good top guy there in Cody Bellinger. We've talked about Alex Verdugo and Willie Calhoun in the past. A little deeper than some of those other tier teams. I really like Austin Barnes, who I think won't be a prospect, beyond the first 2 months of the season this year. Phillies, one of our best farm system Milby last year for the way they worked together as a system in 2016. Most of the names there. It's J.P. Crawford, Jorge Alfaro, Nick Williams, Dylan Cousins, Roman Quinn, Cornelius Randolph. Rhys Hoskins, who put together a great year at Double-A Reading. A lot of them kind of took a little bit of their shine away in 2016, particularly in terms of Crawford and Williams. But in that same way, Dylan Cousins looks like a much better prospect than he did 2 years ago. Rhys Hoskins especially looks that way. Andrew Knapp had a really good 2015, building on that with a strong 2016. Pirates, everybody knows Austin Meadows, is that next guy in the Pirates outfield. It's probably a reason why Andrew McCutchen was thrown around so much in trade talks this offseason. He looks like he could be ready to join Gregor Polanco, Sterling Marte, And, McCutchen patrolling that outfield, how they're going to work that out, we'll have to see. He has to overcome some injury concerns, but he's the number 10 overall prospect in baseball. Anytime you get somebody like that, you're going to rank pretty high in these farm system rankings, kind of in the way that Benintendi, almost alone, along with Devers, puts the Red Sox into the top 10. Meadows and Josh Bell, who probably won't be a prospect for long either as a Pirates first baseman, kind of push the Pirates up here to number 4. That next tier is only 2 teams. I would say the Braves and the Brewers at I think they're that next tier as our next 2 teams, just below the Yankees. The Braves, we talk so much about their middle infield situation. Dansby Swanson going to be their opening day shortstop, knock on wood, barring injury or anything catastrophic this spring. Albies will probably be their second baseman at some point in 2017, probably looking at the second half, after the injuries to Sean Rodriguez. As you know, they brought in Brandon Phillips kind of to be that stopgap. When Albies is ready, they'll certainly give him the time. That's an exciting middle of the infield pair. But they also have some really young, interesting prospects in Kevin Maitan and Ronald Acuna, Travis Demeritte, another second baseman. So they have that top talent and that depth that kind of pushes them here into the top 3. The Brewers, I think they're just a really, really deep system when it comes to this. They don't have that top talent like a Swanson, a Benintendi, a Meadows type. But Lewis Brinson is somebody to get really excited about. They added a really good prospect in Corey Ray from Louisville in last year's first round. Isan Diaz really came on strong in his first full season, added with the Arizona Fall League that everybody seemed to fall in love with him there. They added more with Mauricio Dubon. Trent Clark is still in that system. I mean, we could keep going. Brett Phillips, who has a Q&A on the site this week. I mean, they just seem, the further down you go on the list, I still really like their hitters. And I think that's why they fit so highly here. And then just kind of alone at the top is the New York Yankees, their own tier. Gleyber Torres, one of the best players in the Arizona Fall League last year, played really well in both the Class A Advanced Carolina and Class A Advanced Florida State League after coming over in that trade from the Cubs for Aroldis Chapman. They also added Clint Frazier, who will probably be at AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre this year. They have 5 top 50 prospects beyond Torres and Frazier. They've also got Blake Rutherford at number 37, Aaron Judge at number 45, and Jorge Mateo at number 47. That's just unrivaled in the game right now. You're not going to find position player prospects that stacked. I mean, the closest we may have come was the Red Sox before they went through all their trades this year, getting rid of Yohan Moncada, Michael Kopech, and the rest. And now with the trade some of these other teams have made, the Yankees kind of stand alone. So they were an easy pick for position players. Next week, we're coming out with pitchers. Again, we're doing it the same way we did this week. We'll do 30 through 21, then 20 through 11, then 10 through 1. And Tyler, you're the one writing that, so that should be really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for the pitcher story. And if you are headed onto the site to read these, know which ones you are reading, because I remember last year, for example, in the pitchers ones, we would get comments, in the position players ones, I remember there was a comment of no mention of Julio Urias. This is ridiculous. He's a top prospect in baseball, pitching, blah, blah, blah. So just know they're broken out by position players, then pitchers. Coming up the week after that, we're going to have the best organizations in terms of prospects under the age of 21, and then overall rankings will be the week that we are at spring training, so we'll get a chance to talk about those during our spring training show. But these are a lot of fun. I like the farm system rankings, and it's good debate material.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I do like the way we break it down too, in that there's so much that goes into what we're talking about in a farm system. It's we'll take that big snapshot at the end here, but we want you to look at it in terms of maybe your system isn't really great in terms of pitchers, but it has the position players. That's what you should get excited about. So you'll see how this kind of fans out in the weeks to come. But yeah, if you're a Yankees, Brewers, Braves, Phillies, Pirates prospect fan, it's a good time to get excited. We probably didn't need to be the ones to tell you that, but this kind of hammers it home, I think.
And it isn't just, get excited about these guys because they may play for your team. They could also open up doors, avenues for trades, other moves that could make your team a contender. It's all part of the big puzzle of how to push for the playoffs in Major League Baseball and what the minor league systems do to feed that at the ultimate aims for big league organizations. Strike two this week, Sam. We are getting close to really the meat of the spring training schedule for teams organization-wide. Major league guys are there. Camps have opened. But the minor league guys, everything really gets ramped up in March. That being said, we got a lot of storylines already early on in these first couple of weeks since players have started reporting at official report days. What's your favorite spring training development to this part of April or of February? I'm already getting ahead of myself looking for games.
Yeah, we don't need to say what a spring training development in April is. Hopefully it never gets that long. The one that kind of stuck out to me, he's a friend of the podcast. He's one of the more intriguing prospects in the game from my point of view, is Mets first baseman Dominic Smith. He's reporting to big league camp this year. I think it's the second year he's done that. But what the intriguing thing is he showed up, he dropped 24 pounds, according to, people reporting on the ground there in St. Lucie. And what's intriguing about that is, he's a first base prospect. He's a guy who we've always talked about, needs to add power. I mean, he hit, only one home run for Class A Savannah in 2014, bumped that up to, 14 at AA Binghamton last year, still only 21 years old. So, we've always thought the power is going to come. That means he's going to get stronger. It's, going to play to his game a little bit more. So then he shows up and loses weight, and you kind of think, well, I don't want to say that's not great. I think it's generally good when people get in better shape. And he was a guy who ended last season weighing 260 pounds. So, for a guy who's was listed at, I think 195 at the time, that's, 265 is kind of pushing it. Now he's listed at 250. So, we're getting a little closer to the truth, I think. But for him, he talked a lot about, what that means for conditioning, and you have to go through a full season. So if you're putting on pounds, that means you're getting tired towards the end, and it means you're not going to last. And for a lot of these guys in their development, they talk so much about, being able to handle a full season of games, being able to play from when you show up in February all the way through to October, or if you're lucky, November. And for a guy like him who played 130 games last year, it seemed like he said, this was all about, making sure I can stay within myself. He particularly talked about his eating habits. This is my one chance, I think, ever to bring up the idea of wet burritos on the podcast. He particularly said he cut back on those, which are a SoCal staple where he's from. If you've ever had one, they sound delicious. I've never had one. I had to look up what it means. Apparently it's basically almost exactly as it sounds. It's just a burrito that's incredibly saturated with all the juiciness that a burrito comes with. So he cut back on those this offseason when he went home, cut back on the weight. And now we have to see how that's going to play out. He's probably headed to AAA Las Vegas to start the year. He seems like he could be a guy who could make his major league debut. Now, does tone down mean he can still hit for power? I mean, the PCL is going to be a chance for him to prove that. But this brings up just so many questions in terms of Smith. What is this going to mean for him? Hopefully it means good things. But this certainly caught my eye.
I am going to stick in the National League. The top pitching prospect in baseball, as revealed in the new MLB Pipeline Top 100 rankings, the 8th overall prospect in baseball is Tyler Glasnow of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Glasnow this season seems very committed to finally developing a really reliable third pitch. Last year, according to Fangraphs, he used his fastball in the major league 63.2% of the time, his curveball 35.2% of the time, and his changeup 1.6% of the time. But apparently this offseason and coming into 2017, he's pretty much focused on nailing a changeup, figuring out how to effectively mix a changeup in with repetition throughout his time in the major leagues, not just being a two-pitch guy, but knowing how much that can help the arsenal with the fastball and the curveball looking better with an effective changeup. But these, similarly to Dom Smith and how that's going to affect his profile going forward, these are the storylines that are most fascinating in spring training, or the bare intricacies of the final stages for guys trying to make it to the major leagues, trying to stick in the major leagues. This is the point of spring training. These are the most interesting storylines to me. So for Tyler Glasnow, he actually told the Pittsburgh media that he threw the changeup more than he threw the fastball over the offseason. It's a new grip. It seems like he's kind of starting to figure out that that's the last piece, and when that comes into place, he can be a member of that rotation if it all falls perfectly in spring training. He could be their number 5 guy coming out of camp. He could be headed back to AAA Indianapolis. We talked to Stan Kiles last year, AAA Indianapolis pitching coach, about his development at that level. Still young. He's only 23. He'll be 23 for the majority of this season. But I love when you see guys get to that stage where they know, okay, I'm at the precipice of it now. This is when I need to get myself over the line. So if I'm a Pirates fan, I'm pretty pumped about that, because Tyler Glasnow can bring the fastball near triple digits. The curveball is a plus pitch, maybe a plus type of pitch. To have a third complement to that, you need that to be successful at the major league level. And with the enthusiasm and the commitment with which he has attacked that over the offseason, that's what you need to see from a guy who is going to be such a big piece of this team and this rotation going forward, especially if they want to compete in that division now with a team that's already the class of baseball like the Cubs and so many other talented teams in that division.
Yeah, but the thing with these stories for me is always, it sounds great. And the good thing for him is that I think I saw quotes with Josh Harrison saying, I couldn't hit the pitch. I knew he was throwing a changeup and I couldn't hit it, which is great. I mean, Josh Harrison is definitely a major league hitter. He's an all-star in the past. This isn't some kid in Double-A who's saying the pitch looks great to me. This is a guy who knows what he's talking about. But I want to see it play out in games. We're not going to know what it means until we get into Grapefruit League action. And with Glasnow in particular, I think his stuff has always been good. I mean, adding a third pitch, adding a reliable changeup that he really likes, something that can be above average, is great for his development. But I need to see him throw strikes with it. I need to see him throw strikes with his fastball. I mean, a lot of it comes down to his control. And if he has 3 great pitches, but he can't put them over the plate with regularity, that's what's going to hold him back, as it has in the past when he's been climbing the ladder in Pittsburgh. So it's a great thing for now, and that's what we have to go off right now is in spring training, what feels good to these guys, what they can kind of tell us. But once it comes into games, that's when I want to kind of see these spring training stories turn into real things.
So the spring training developments we're keeping an eye on in the very early stages of 2017 Cactus League and Grapefruit League action. Yeah, Tyler Glasnow last year in 110 innings and 2/3 for AAA Indianapolis, 133 strikeouts, but 62 walks. Control is his lowest graded tool. Strike 3 this week, Sam. Sunday, the Oscars. I love the Oscars, which is probably one of the most random things about me. But you came up with this topic, which I'm very excited about. If we were going to have a movie made about a prospect's life or professional story, who are you taking? What's our best picture nominee?
Yeah, so when I first thought of this question, just because, like you, we talked about this in the past, probably more privately than we have on the podcast, but we both love movies. I mean, we try to catch as much of the best picture nominees as we can. I would love to see Manchester by the Sea get as many awards as it can, but I don't know if that's going to happen in the year of La La Land, which is sad and a story for a different podcast. But what I was kind of drawn to is what we don't, the stories we don't know necessarily. And I think that right now in the game, the way it's kind of going right now is we don't really know that much about the journey for non-American guys to get here, particularly when it comes to Cuban prospects and Cuban players. There was a documentary a couple of years ago, this was out of the Dominican Republic, but ball player Pelotero, which told the story of Miguel Sano and what that's like. We've kind of seen that. But I think more of a light is kind of being shined recently on, the troubles Cuban players have to go through it's not like they just show up and say, I'm ready to play baseball now. A lot of them have to go through, sometimes illegal activity to get here. And there's some troubles now in terms of human smuggling that involves in that.
Just this week, Leonis Martin, who was formerly a top prospect in the Texas Rangers system, he testified that after he was smuggled from Cuba by a group of human traffickers, he feared for his life. He was testifying at the trial of Bartolo Hernandez and Julio Estrada, who were facing felony charges in connection to that. But that's the stuff that these guys go through.
Right. And so what kind of came to mind for me was, who is the top Cuban prospect in the game? That's an easy answer. It's Yoan Moncada. And Moncada has his own strange journey to kind of get here. He left Cuba with a Cuban passport, was allowed to leave the country. And that's when it kind of gets cloudy. I don't know if this has ever been answered. I mean, I tried to research this before we came on here. I didn't find any answers to my satisfaction. When the Red Sox first signed him for a $31.5 million bonus, of which they had to add $31.5 million because they went over their international cap, he had left Cuba, with a Cuban passport, and went to a country, or he left Cuba, and then it kind of gets foggy. I mean, we don't know all the details as much as I would love to, as much as I kind of researched this before we came on the podcast. I couldn't quite find an answer. So the story, as it sounds to me, is that he left Cuba, went to a South American country for like a couple months, 2 to 3 months, never said which country he went to, and then established residency in Guatemala, and then was allowed to kind of try out for scouts and stuff and show off who he was. Everybody knew he was uber talented. He had been in international tournaments in the Netherlands and other places. So everybody knew who he was, but he had to kind of go through these pack channels, and it gets foggy there. And also his kid, who's actually kind of been in the news lately because, he put together a monstrous bat flip. The woman he had that child with is involved in that somehow. She was involved in an agency that helped Cuban players get settled in the U.S. She claims they were only involved romantically. But there's just so much intrigue that would go into an intriguing movie here. There's romance, there's international law, there's, crossing borders, there's all this stuff, there's baseball. And maybe it would work better as a documentary just because there's so much that needs to be kind of peeled and uncovered. That's our job as journalists. And I hope someday, whether it's one of us or somebody else, gets to kind of tell the story of exactly how Yoan Moncada got here. But going from that to becoming a top prospect in baseball, what is that journey like? What is it like? Even though he's made the majors, he hasn't stuck there yet. But even then, that doesn't need to be the end of the story for him to be an all-star. Just what is that journey like? So I would love to see that turned into a story, kind of like Pelotero, like I said before, whether it's a documentary, whether it's like kind of a fictionalized version. That would just be kind of an amazing story. So that's where I would kind of lean. And if there's anybody out there who's a screenwriter and would love to work that up, that would be awesome.
It really honestly surprises me that we haven't seen something like that, especially as it relates to Cuban ball players. Like you said, I mean, there was the Miguel Sano documentary. There was a movie made several years ago now named Sugar, which was a fictional story about a Dominican ball player actually in the Midwest League. We'll talk with Willy Adames, so the Tampa Bay Rays, here in a little bit about his time in the Midwest League. And that was really interesting about the struggles that those guys go through in getting acclimatized to playing pro ball in the United States. But the fact that nothing on a large scale has really been done about the Cuban ball player's story is really interesting to me. I mean, from, like you said, Seattle Mariners with Leonis Martin, Yasiel Puig, Los Angeles Dodgers, all these stories that have been, Aroldis Chapman was an interesting story, the way he defected at a tournament in Europe, just walked out of a team hotel, ended up establishing residency in Andorra, I believe, because Cuban players have to establish residency in a third-party country in order to sign with a major league organization, with the exception really of the 30 for 30 ESPN documentary on the Hernandez brothers, Orlando and Livan Hernandez, brothers in exile. There really hasn't been anything about Cuban players on a large scale, which fascinates me, but maybe that'll happen sometime soon. And if you are, like Sam said, somebody in the filmmaking business, if you're a screenwriter and you need two people to be your advisors on trips to Cuba, I'm sure Sam and I could carve out some time for that.
Oh yeah, no, we can script supervise. We can do all that. Key grips. We can be normal grips, or
we can do bus
we can
boys.
be key grips. Yeah,
whatever it is.
We can do the snapping thing with the.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called, but yeah, we
Action.
can do that.
Whap. Yeah, I don't know what that thing is called either. The action block. I got a couple of guys. One of them is not technically a prospect, but falls somewhat in line of the same stories as Sam was discussing a second ago. And I guess debatable. He hasn't made the big leagues yet, but not really a prospect age-wise. We'll talk about him in a second. One guy who I think would be really interesting to know the entirety of his story is Brady Aiken. Aiken became the third number one pick in draft history to not sign when he was taken by the Astros in 2014. It looked like he and the Astros had come to a contract. Then there was a physical after the draft that threw everything into question. Concerns about his elbow. Houston cut his signing bonus offer from $6.5 million to $5 million. He ended up not signing. Then he went to IMG Academy's facility in Bradenton, Florida, blew out his elbow almost immediately, and had Tommy John surgery, went back into the draft in 2015, still went in the first round, 17th pick to the Cleveland Indians, but we really haven't seen a lot out of Brady Aiken so far. 14 appearances last year, 13 starts between two levels, the Arizona League, the lowest level of pro ball, and rookie level in the AZL. He went 0-4 with a 7.13 ERA and 9 appearances, but then he jumped up, pitching in the New York Penn League, 2-1, a 4.43 ERA and 5 outings. Brady Aiken is still only 20 years old, but that whole story, when he came out of high school, was taken first overall, the drama that ensued, the insinuations of wrongdoing by one side versus the other, all that kind of stuff, and then for him to go back to school to a postgraduate facility, and then blow out his elbow, and then come back as a first-round pick again. Brady Aiken's story has fascinated me. The other guy who I think his life story, if he makes the major leagues, I believe it will eventually be made into a movie, is Gift Ngope of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Gift is 27 years old now, but a middle infielder who reached AAA last season with the Indianapolis Indians. If he makes the big leagues, he will be the first African-born major leaguer in baseball history. And Gift's story is fascinating. He was born to a mother who worked for a baseball club in his native South Africa. She actually lived in the clubhouse with Gift and his little brother, who has also since signed a contract with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Gift's mom has since passed away, but there have been some really great long-form stories written about Gift and now written about his brother as well that you can find. Sports Illustrated did one when he was in the very low levels of the minor leagues. But Gift's story is fascinating. I mean, the way he was discovered by the Pirates when he was signed and brought over, being that far away from home, being a trailblazer for an entire continent that in areas has embraced baseball to a certain degree, but hasn't had a star to gravitate toward. I mean, we've had players from Europe. We've had players from Australia. We have players from, even non-traditional baseball countries in Latin America. Brazil has produced a lot of players in recent seasons, but the entire continent of Africa, not just the country of South Africa where Gift is from, but the entire continent of Africa, he could be that first guy. And that story is as unique as any story in baseball. So no, maybe not still a prospect the way he once was in terms of age and where he is on track in his minor league career, but he's a 40-man guy. He's a versatile infielder, needs the bat to pick up a little bit, but saw time at AAA last year. This could be the year for Gift Ngope, and I think he'd be fascinating to learn more about.
That would be fantastic, yeah, for sure. We don't have that many guys who represent an entire continent, and we don't mean to say that he has that on his shoulders.
Right.
It's just we've gotten to the point in our kind of history where so many firsts have already happened. When I feel like we're kind of grasping for the next first, and to have something like this happen so organically, and on merit, he has certainly put in his dues. Like you said, the bat still needs to kind of come along, but he is on a 40-man roster that is not just for the story. That is on a team that is trying to contend and is not in a place to just give away roster spots. When he makes that first major league debut and everybody's interviewing him in Pittsburgh about what that's about, and it starts to get more mainstream coverage. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see that movie eventually.
So, Oscars coming up on Sunday, and for those of you who are screenwriters and want to give me and Sam jobs, go for it. It'd be really cool. So that's strike three for this week's edition, episode number 98 of the show before the show. And coming up, we're going to head to the Tampa Bay Rays system, where we will catch up with the top-rated prospect in that organization and MLB.com's number 21 overall prospect, shortstop and 2016 Southern League All-Star Willy Adames joins the show next. The Tampa Bay Rays organization is where we find this week's guest for the Minor League Baseball podcast, the show before the show. Top-rated prospect in the Rays system, Willy Adames, joins us from Florida. Willy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm great.
It's good to talk to you. This is obviously a very exciting time of year for everybody, but it's got to be a really exciting time of year for you. Last year, really good season at Double-A Montgomery. You're 21 years old coming into this year. There are very big things on the horizon for you. I mean, at this point right now in February, how exciting of a time is this for you to know, this could be Triple-A, this could be your big league debut season. How much fun are you having right now getting this underway?
It's excited to be here, man. My first big league camp in spring training. It's been great. I've been working out with Miller a lot, talking a lot. Just getting some advice that they given to me. It's been a lot of fun. This upcoming year, I think it's gonna be great.
Willy, what's the biggest difference so far in Major League camp versus what you've been through in minor league camps in seasons past? Because for people who are unfamiliar, your report dates, your workouts, the exposure to the coaching staff that you get is all different. What's been the biggest difference for you in Major League camp?
I mean, it's like, for me, the difference, like they work a lot in the little things, like fundamental stuff and all that, and when they are catching ground balls, they don't miss ground balls. They have fun every day, and the coaches and staff, they're really good. They always got their eyes on you and telling you what you have to do. I think it's they pretty good.
And Willy, how did you kind of approach this spring training? What were you working on in the offseason? I mean, we all know the Rays, added you to the 40-man, back in November. So that seems like a pretty big career milestone. But in terms of, being close to the majors and that kind of thing, how do you approach this spring training?
I've been working a lot on my defense, so because I have to get better on my defense, so that way I can get quicker to the big leagues. And this past January, I was working out with Chris Archer in St. Pete, and it was fun, man. I mean, it was a great experience to be with Archer working out. He was showing me up, like, how the big league is working, and I think it was fun, man.
How did that come about? How did you end up working with Archer? Did he reach out to you? Did you reach out to him? How did that kind of partnership work?
He reached out to me in the off season. He told me that he wanted me to come earlier this year, so that way he can show me around and he can like kind of like teach me how the big leaguers working out.
So what was the biggest thing you learned from him, during those workouts?
Like how hard he work and how concentrate is he during the workouts, and his personality, man, is unbelievable. That's the most thing that I got from him, like his personality. I love that, man, from him.
Willy's coming off a huge year last year with Double-A Montgomery, an MILB.com organization all-star, a postseason all-star, a midseason all-star selection in the Southern League, and a Futures Game selection as well. And Willy, this is right now, I mean, you kind of get to focus on your time with the Rays, your future with the Rays, and being a guy that an organization is very excited about. But this time a few years ago, you were a guy getting adjusted to a new organization, signed by the Tigers. You make the jump to the States States and to professional ball in the U.S. at 18 years old. And then in your first season in the U.S., you get traded at the deadline, part of the David Price deal back in 2014. What was that like? I mean, you're here for the first time playing. You're in West Michigan. You get to stay in the Midwest League, which is nice. But 18 years old, you get traded. You're in a new organization. Take us back to that. What was that like for you?
I wasn't expecting that. Like, I wasn't thinking about that at all because, it was my first year here, and I was like, oh, no, I just got to play baseball. I just got to do what I have to do. And when they told me that, when they called me that I got traded, I was like, what? I got surprised because I wasn't expecting that. And I started crying because, like I spent like few years with the Tigers over there in Dominican, and I had like my guys over there in the Tigers, so I was like, oh man, I don't know anybody in the race. Now I gotta make like my new guys, and I gotta make my family over there, and you know how it is. But then like when I got here, like one of my buddies from Dominican, he was here, so that helped me. And then like when the time it was passing away, I was like, okay, I feel good here, and I start to know like everybody, and I feel good now.
When you look back on that season, Willy, coming over, it's not a common thing for an organization to jump guys over the low levels, especially when bringing them over from the Dominican Republic. But you played in the DSL in 2013, and then you skip the Gulf Coast League, you skip the New York Penn League and the Connecticut Tigers, and you go right to Midwest League. At 18 years old to be in full season ball, what was the toughest thing about that adjustment, going from playing 60 games in the DSL the summer before to 125 games in 2014?
It was tough, man. It was hard because, in the Midwest League, it's cold. And, I never been in the weather like that. So in the beginning of the season, I was like, oh, my God, what is this? So I had to make that adjustment and learn about, like, you got to play no matter what, like, no matter where you at and no matter what the weather is. And by that time, I didn't know that because, I was so young that I was just thinking about, like, I have to do good because they don't know me, and this is my first year here. I gotta impress everybody. But in the beginning of the season, but like then I had like two Latin guys in the team that they was helping me, and they was telling me, like, they was giving me advices, and I was like, oh, okay, and I started learning from them.
And Willy, we could even jump further back than that because we don't get a chance to have many guys, who don't go through the draft process. And obviously, coming out of the Dominican Republic, you were signed by the Tigers before that for, I think it was $420,000. What was that process like? Being a young teenager, having these teams kind of come after you, throwing signing bonuses at you, whatever. What was that process like? And why did you end up choosing the Tigers in the first place when you were first going through that?
I mean, that process is hard too because you work every day and you have no day off because you just want to get signed. And I choose the Tiger because I felt comfortable with them. I was like going to the academy of the Tigers over there, like maybe like every 3 months. I was going to the academy, so like I knew everybody over there, so I was like, oh, I feel good here, so I can choose this team, and I can just do what I have to do here and then see what happens. And I choose the Tigers, and they help me, and they teach me a lot. And like in Dominican, for the young guys like that, they just want to get signed, bro. Like, it's hard, but it's fun at the same time.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So kind of we'll flash forward back to the present. One thing that kind of stood out to me about your 2016 season was the way you kind of put on some power. You hit 11 home runs last year. You hit 31 doubles. What kind of went into your power jump last year? And I guess to tie it back to the previous thing, how are you kind of a different player now than you were when the Tigers first signed you in the Dominican?
I think because I got more experience now, so I got like my approach in the home plate is better now. I'm choosing like I'm taking better pitches now, and I'm just like swinging the ball, swinging the bat, and don't thinking in anything when I'm in the home plate. So I think that helped me last year, and my manager, oh my God, Brady Wheeler, I love him. He was all the time like in like with his eyes on me and telling me when I was doing something bad. He always took me to the cage with the hitting coach and the man, and they always were like helping me every day. So I think that was the point that I why I had that season last year.
Willie last year led the Southern League with 74 walks and ranked third in the league with 31 doubles. And like I said, all those Southern League accolades and all-star honors and MILB.com organization all-star honors and stuff. And that's all fun. But there's one thing that I really wanted to ask you about, Willie, because, again, this is not a topic that we get to discuss much. But you went back, played a little bit in the Dominican Winter League this year for the Tigres del Licey. And people here, I don't think really get what the Dominican Winter League is like, or what the Venezuelan Winter League is like, or the Mexican Pacific Winter League, because it's such a different atmosphere of baseball. And I know for you guys growing up, that's the dream in a lot of cases, is to play in those leagues, to play in front of those big sellout crowds, loud, boisterous crowds, all 9 innings. To go back, you played 10 games this year for Tigres. What was that experience like for you?
It was great, man. I mean, even I didn't do good over there, but it was fun. Because you play in front of your people and everybody that knows you, and it's just you're just excited to play there. Because like you say, it's like the dream for us in Dominican. Like you want to play in front of your people, but like the league over there is hard. It's because the people over there they got experience, they old, and it's competitive. And like I say, I just had fun over there, and I think it was great because we win the championship, and I'm getting a ring.
I was going to cap that off. I mean, that's obviously got to be a pretty fun way to wrap things up. And the crazy thing is, too, that's a 9-game series, and it's Licey and Aguilas in that series. Licey ends up winning 5 games to 4 games. The playoffs in the Dominican Winter League start December 27th, and they ended January 28th. It's a whole month of playoffs. I mean, to be a part of that, to be on a roster and go through a run like that, did you get a chance to be there for the championship game, that final matchup on January 28th?
No, because I was here already.
So were you watching it? Were you online? Did you get a chance to follow it at all?
Of course, man. I had to watch that game. Of course I had to.
So are you just in a hotel room in St. Pete going nuts, screaming like a crazy person watching that game?
Of course, man. I was getting crazy, man, because it's fun to see your team winning. It's always fun.
A 5-4 series win in 9 games. And Willie, one of the things that everybody I know in the Rays organization loves about you, and a big scouting report thing about you, is character, personality, and your leadership qualities. And a huge thing with that is the fact that you took to English very quickly and are fluent in English. What was that for, being a guy who you're still so young, and having to learn that at such a young age while also playing baseball alongside that? It's not like you get a chance to just go to school and study for a full semester or whatever it is to learn a language. How did that come about for you, and how do you think that's helped you get acclimated to, not only being in the Rays organization, but the trade and coming over to the Midwest League at 18? How has that whole thing fallen together for you?
I mean, to learn English for me is very important because, I'm here in the United States, so they speak English, so I have to learn English here. So when I was in the Tigers in the Midwest season, I was like, I didn't know English at that time, and I was telling to my teammates that helped me, like every time that I say something wrong, like, hey, correct me, help me, tell me what I like, how I have to say the word, and that thing helped me a lot. Because now I can communicate with my teammates here and like do some interview like that, like what we're doing right now. it was hard. It was hard, but it's fun. And my personality, I'm just trying to be a good guy, you know. I'm just trying to be a good teammate and help the young guys, the youngest guy, and trying to be a good person. That's it.
All right. Well, I've just got two more quick, and then we'll kind of wrap it up there. But you brought up before how you've been working on your defense and at shortstop. That's obviously one of the tougher positions defensively. What kind of work do you think you need to kind of put in, and what have the Rays talked to you about in terms of sticking at shortstop and what you need to do to kind of take your game to the next level there?
I mean, they just been telling me that I just have to make like the routine plays, and I've been working on that, trying to make every routine play in the practice, trying to make every throw in the chest to the first base, and because that was my that's my ability, because I have to get better on that. My accuracy is not good throwing to first base, so I've been working a lot on that.
And just kind of ended on this, this now that you are part of the 40-man, you are going to be part of the Major League conversation. That's why you're there, at Major League camp in spring training. Tampa Bay kind of has an interesting situation at short with just so many guys who have played there in the past, between Matt Duffy, Brad Miller, Nick Franklin, Beckham, yourself. You go down the list. How is it kind of playing, in that position in camp, and how do you kind of see yourself fitting into that situation in the organization?
I mean, just like doing what I have to do to be there, just trying to do my best and let them do their job, and whenever they need me, they're gonna call me and I'm gonna be there. So I'm just trying to be competitive and trying to have fun with those guys and learn from them, and trying to make myself like best every day, better and better.
Willy Adames, the top-ranked prospect in the Tampa Bay Rays organization, is on Twitter. He is at WillyA02, and as he said, one of the good guys, trying to be a good person. We need more people like that in the world, Willy, and this has been a ton of fun for us to get a chance to talk to you, and congrats on all success last season in Montgomery, and this year Durham or Tampa, wherever it takes you, we'll be watching, and best of luck the rest of spring training and into the season.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Episode number 98, rolling along on the Minor League Baseball podcast, the show before the show. Big thanks to Willy Adames of the Tampa Bay Rays for joining us, and we move along to our third segment of the day, and one Benjamin Hill, who joins us in New York City. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Tyler.
We're so close to really rolling out everything for the 2017 season. Promo schedules continue to be coming out from teams coast to coast, but we're at the end of one phase of the minor league offseason. That's the rebrand phase. The Lowell Spinners, of course, putting out their new logos, so not just rebranding, but refreshing, and the re as we talk about for new looks over the offseason. So it looks like it's all done, and you've got it all compiled coming up on the site.
Yeah, I mean, these are things we've talked about throughout the offseason, as they occur, these new logos and or completely new identities. But since there will be no more primary logos this offseason, no new team names announced, I've gone ahead and written an article that is just a recap of all the changes we saw. And it's the third year in a row I've done that, so I think it's a nice way to do something pithy but informative. And as we've learned, people love reading about new team names and logos, so I'm just here to give the people what they want.
So when you look at the 2016-2017 offseason, there seems to be one common theme, which has been a common theme throughout really the last handful or more years in minor league baseball. But Brandiose dominates the scene. There was only, I think, one or two rebrands or redesigns this year that was not Brandiose, which we've discussed at times before that you would assume at some point there's going to be a swing in the other direction where teams are going to start saying, okay, everybody has that look, and now we want something different. But what do you think it says? I mean, obviously the quality of work by Brandiose is outstanding, and that is what everybody gravitates towards still.
Well, I think this is the year. I certainly don't want to say this is the year Brandiose peaked, because Jason and Casey, the guys behind that company, are ambitious fellows and have their fingers in a lot of pies, so to speak. So I would never count them out in terms of their growth as a company. But it might be the year Brandeis peaked in terms of percentage of rebranding and new logo that they were involved with. The first 6 new logos and or total rebrandings of this offseason were all Brandeis. And those 6 were the ones that I think got the most publicity, both positive and negative. So I think there were 9 teams I'm including in my article. The first 6 were Brandeis, and it wasn't until Memphis where Studio Simon, who has done work with minor league teams for years, finally was thrown into the mix. The Buies Creek Astros, are just a temporary team for 2 years before they moved to Fayetteville. They just basically repurposed the Houston Astros logo / the Greenville Astros logo. So that doesn't really qualify as new. And then the Lowell Spinners worked with FS Design, a company you don't see in minor league baseball very often, but Dave Heller, the owner of the Spinners, had worked with FS Design previously with Quad Cities, another team in which he owns. But we really saw a lot of Brandeis this year, and as we have in years past. But like last year, there weren't any pre-existing franchises who changed their names and logos. We had the Hartford Yard Goats play their first season, but that was a new team. We had Columbia Fireflies play their first season, but that was a new team. This year, though, we had 3 teams, 3 pre-existing franchises change their names, overhaul their identity totally while still staying in the same market. And those were all Brandeis entities. And I think that's what Brandeis is best known for, is in some cases not just doing the logo, but working with a new team or a pre-existing team that completely wants to have something new and very now and irreverent. So we saw the New Orleans Zephyrs become the New Orleans Baby Cakes. We saw the Binghamton Mets become the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. And we saw, what is the third team? I wrote
Fire
about it today. No, the third the Jacksonville Suns became the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. Those are all Brandeis entities. And then we had new teams in the form of the Central Florida Fire Frogs, a Brandeis entity, as well as, I just wrote this article and now I'm blanking. But there's a lot. That's all I'm trying to say.
The Down East Wood Ducks.
The Down East Wood Ducks. Thank you very much, Tyler. When there's one set of footprints in the sand, it is then that you carried me.
Well, so it sounds like, to me, it's not so much that Brandeis is kind of taking over the industry. This just seems to be like the right moment for that company. Is that what it kind of feels like to you? If there was a year in which Brandeis was going to take over, it was just kind of this year, this might not be something that carries forward?
Well, I think it's certainly going to carry forward. Whether it's proportionally as strong as it's been this year remains to be seen. I know that Brandeis, their approach is not one size fits all. I think there are teams throughout minor league baseball who don't have anything against them, but prefer to maybe do something more conservative. I think there is the perception in the industry that you work with Brandeis if you want to do something radical. That's not necessarily the case. We could talk to them, and I've talked to them plenty, where they could point to things they've done that were just more, quote unquote, traditional or kind of just variations on a pre-existing theme. But what they're known best for and what they get the most attention for and what they've done more often than not in recent years is the total overhaul. And this has been their moment for that. But there are some markets that I just don't think, for whatever reason, don't want to go in that direction. I think this year you saw Lowell and Memphis not go with Brandeis. And it's no coincidence that those are 2 teams that didn't change their name and were looking for something new, but also a little more, comparatively conservative. And I don't think it's a total coincidence that those teams that want something a little more muted, but still new and still something that's regional and specific to them might not go with Brandeis. But as I said, it's not one size fits all. And these companies are adaptable and like any business the clients need. So, I don't want to overgeneralize anything, but certainly there are consistent themes in Brandeis's work that we've seen for a long time and that really came to a head this year and really got the most attention of any rebranding offseason I've ever seen in terms of the amount of people talking about it and getting outraged and getting excited about the Caps or wherever you fall into the minor league fan mix.
Well, just in terms of, besides, Brandeis, what else has kind of stood out to you now that you've had kind of a chance to step back and beyond just the flash, here's a new logo, let's all dissect it and that kind of thing. Now that the wool or the dye in the wool has kind of been cast for a while now on a lot of these things, what else besides Brandeis has kind of stood out to you?
Well, I just think having done this a number of years that you see about the same number of teams every year do something, whether it's a complete overhaul, whether it's a new team playing a new market, whether it's just a new logo, you're going to see probably between 8 and a dozen teams a year do it. And there's 160 teams. And if you've been doing 8 and 12 do it a year, and that's been pretty consistent in recent years, then you kind of look at it as a big picture and you see that's the sort of rate that the industry turns over within itself. If say it's 10 teams, that's 10 1/60th. I can't do the math. That's what percentage is that of minor league baseball?
10 1/60th?
10 out of 160.
So that's 1/16th. So that's like 6%.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, my mind isn't working all that well today. So I think we're seeing the industry kind of turn itself over in terms of identities and logos at a rate of about 1/16th a year, which I think is pretty remarkable. Because 1/16th is obviously a small minority, but that's a pretty sizable subset of the industry to be trying something new every year. And I think it speaks to what teams are going for. They want regional identities. They want to make a splash in their market. And the best way to do that is to have a new look, to have new merchandise you can sell, to have new areas of the ballpark that you can brand and theme around new identities. And, that's just the nature, the name of the game, the nature of the beast, and however you want to put it.
Yeah, just imagine 2 major league teams, 1 or 2 major league teams a year changing their logos, and we just go through that.
Right.
Like every 15 years, it would just be an entirely new
exactly.
outlook on the landscape.
The rate of change we're seeing in the minors would be if 2 major league teams did it per year, and that would be pretty significant. But the majors are more tradition bound, and I think a lot more cautious in changing their look, and for good reason in a lot of cases. But I think the minors have a little more leeway to just have fun, and I think people who are perceptive minor league fans see that, even if they don't like something. I think there's a general attitude of relax. It's minor league baseball. Like, it's supposed to be about fun. And I think that's a big part of it. You might not like everything, but I think it's crucial to understand this is supposed to be about fun. And teams are going to do what they can to really convey something fun. And it doesn't have to have the tradition and seriousness of the St. Louis Cardinals. It can just be the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. Why not? You're a minor league team, and you're going to have fun.
So that's up on the site right now, and as Ben noted, the new logos and identities are probably done for 2017. That does not necessarily mean that new fun stuff is done. I know the Nashville Sounds just unveiled an alternate red jersey they'll be wearing on Fridays, so there's always kind of those fun last little droplets before the season starts of new and exciting stuff for the nerds like us who are fired up about logos and uniforms and all that kind of stuff. So that is up on the site right now. Over on the blog, Ben's got a really cool story about the Lexington Legends and their Stash Tank initiative, which is one of the really cool community-involved projects in minor league baseball. Stash Tank, it's kind of based on the idea of Shark Tank. It targets youth in the Lexington community. Ben, tell us about this. It's a really, really neat program.
It is a cool program, and I wrote about it on the blog, bensbiz.mlblogs.com, of course. It's not the kind of thing that will go viral, that Twitter will be sharing constantly, because to really understand what the Legends are doing, you have to look into it and read about it. The internet doesn't like to read. So regardless, there are people who like to read. I shouldn't come across as so cynical. I'm sorry. I'm talking about something positive right now, and that's what I want to highlight. So Stash Tank, which Lexington has done each of the last 2 seasons, is modeled after the reality show Shark Tank. But they work with middle and high schools in the area. So this year they worked with 3 different schools with teams from each school, and each team had a different category to work on. Teams from one school worked on opening day festivities and hype videos to be played on opening day, obviously. Another teams in other schools worked on new concession items, and teams in another school worked on a giveaway item. So these teams within each school compete one against another and pitch their ideas to local business leaders in the style of the show Shark Tank, and then one team is chosen as the winner and actually has their idea implemented at the ballpark. So the team that had the winning concession item from Crawford Middle School, their bacon-wrapped chicken bites will actually be available at the ballpark this season. And they look pretty tasty. One of the other schools, that pitched giveaway items, the winning team has and I've never seen this before, fruit-infused water bottles. And I don't know exactly how that works. If there's a little fruit inside, which I don't think, but we're gonna have to look into that a little more.
Is it like filtered through a watermelon? I don't know what infused means. I would love to know how it works. I remember flavored water was all the craze. What 10, 15 years ago, something like that. So this is
so
next wave of that.
Right now we're fruit confused, but April 16th, this winning giveaway will be given away by the Lexington Legends. It was the William Wells Brown Elementary School. One of their winning teams from that school pitched the idea. So big picture, you're working with kids in the local community and you're giving them real world experience, real world sports business experience, to not just have pie in the sky crazy ideas, but to actually have to work towards something that's grounded in reality with the knowledge that the team might actually do it. And I think it's a great idea. The Legends have put a lot of work into this and making it work, because it is kind of logistically heavy. That's why it's something that doesn't convey very well in a tweet. But when you look at what they're doing and the amount of students they're working with, the amount of people they're impacting, and the pure satisfaction of seeing these ideas implemented at the ballpark in front of thousands of people. It's hard to think of things you might do in school, elementary school, middle school, high school, where you have that kind of audience and where you see the fruits of your labor, or the fruit-infused fruits of your labor, whatever. Executed in such a grand fashion. I think it's a great idea. And a lot of the things I do write about on my blog, I do go for the viral stuff when I can, but I also know that people who work in minor league baseball read it as well. And I try to focus on things like what the Legends are doing that hopefully might have an impact with another team. Right now it's close to opening day, but they say, hey, let's file that one away. I think we might want to look into our variation of that idea, and that's what minor league baseball is all about.
Also on the blog, Ben's got some return to the road posts up, which is one of the cool things that Ben gets a chance to do over the offseason, is dive into some of the non-baseball related things that he did on road trips. So there's some stuff from the Carolinas there. Durham is awesome. I loved your post on Durham. I got to go there actually each of the last 2 years, and it seems like you and I had much the same reaction of like, man, I could totally live here. This place is sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. These posts I'm doing now are just sort of the odds and sods from my previous season's trips as I prepare the itineraries for this coming season. So it's all non-ballpark stuff, but I do my best just to share some leftover photos I have, the record stores I go to, just the city explorations, as a means to hopefully convey just a little slice of what it's like to be in that city outside of the ballpark. Durham, absolutely. I look at New York City as my wife, I suppose. But there's all these mistresses I have on the road. I mean, city mistresses. And Durham was one of them. I was like, Durham, I could live in you. No problem.
It's a beautiful place.
I could hear New York City's voice.
Calling you back furiously. Wait a minute. What did you just say to Durham?
That's generally how I feel. Like, you're not going anywhere, and you know it. Come back here. And that's the way it is. But I do love to go to these cities. And Durham is interesting. Obviously, it rose to prominence in the turn of the 20th century with tobacco, and they've completely repurposed the tobacco factories and storage areas. And really, that city has a lot of arts and culture and a lot of creative uses of old industrial space, and just a sense of vibrancy and creativity that really appealed to me. And it's just a great city to walk around in. I think they are getting a lot of transplants moving to that area because it seems like if you're looking for a cool place to live, Durham might be on your list. So I'm a fan of Durham, so I got to write about that a little bit. Got to write about stopping it south of the border later on in that trip. The border in question is the North and South Carolina border, so this place is in South Carolina. But if you know south of the border, you see these kind of vaguely racist billboards for miles and miles and miles.
Something you never forget.
With Pedro, the Mexican mascot. And, of course, I had to stop, and there's just tacky souvenirs galore and a viewing tower that has a sombrero at the top of it. It's America, and I like to write about such things and the things I see on the road. So if you're into American road trip minutia, please check it out. And please know that I'll have my schedules for 2017 coming up later this month. I'll set a date in the very near future, but sometime around, let's say March 22nd, March 23rd, I'll review the 2017 itineraries, and eager to unveil that, talk to everyone about what I can focus on at my 2017 trips, and, full speed ahead into a new season.
All that coming up to the blog, coming up to the site, and more. Benjamin Hill is on Twitter. He is at Ben's Biz. The blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com. You can check out the rebranding story at milb.com as well. And Ben, looking forward to more stuff from the road so we can all plan out things to do away from the ballpark when we get to make road trips of our own. And we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, please do. Talk to me next week.
Benjamin Hill once more on Twitter. He is at Ben's Biz. And again, you can follow Willy Adames of the Tampa Bay Rays on Twitter. He is at Willy with 2 L's, Willy A02. And Willy Adames, it was really cool to get a chance to talk to him because, as we noted several times in the interview, we don't get to have those conversations a lot because for so many of the Latin American players who come over, they're either just learning English or they don't yet know English, or even in a lot of contexts, the guys who do know English aren't necessarily as comfortable doing long-length interviews like we do for the podcast. And so to get a chance to talk to somebody like Willy, who has been through so much already in his professional life, and he's still only 21, and he's on the brink of really big things, that's awesome because this game is so diverse, and we don't want to tell you just the stories of the guys that were first-round picks, just the stories of the guys who came out of big colleges. We want to be able to give you everybody's stories, and Willy is like a lot of guys. I mean, when he was signed, Sam gave the number $420,000 when he signed. That's not blown out of the water type of money for an international prospect. Willy was kind of an unknown when he was traded to the Rays, and he has made himself into a top prospect. Really cool to get a chance to hear from him.
Yeah, I mean, we try to do this in the past. We've done it with Ahmed Rosario. I remember, I think Wilson Contreras was the first native Spanish speaker that we had. But, I mean, Tyler and I talked about this, after we hung up with him. There's a good chunk of the game, 40% maybe, maybe it's 1/3, maybe it's 33%, whatever, coming from Latin American countries. And we don't want to ignore those guys who have different stories. I mean, as we brought up in the Oscar discussion, Moncada's story is fascinating, and there are so many guys with stories like that. You heard Willy talk about, you have to stick around complexes, and it's so competitive to get signed, and that's all you're looking to do, but you're also still trying to have fun, and those are the stories we kind of want to tell. So if there's somebody in your favorite organization or some other story that you've heard that you want kind of told on the podcast, a voice that you don't think is necessarily heard in this type of format that we can kind of make happen, we'd love to make it happen. If you're a club that has somebody like that, we'd love to talk to those guys. Because, I think we do a pretty good job of getting interesting interviews on here and hearing notable guys, but, we want to make it a podcast that's not only representative of the prospect landscape, but of baseball as a whole. And if, we can do a better job of that, we'd love to hear people about how we can. So it's our, heartfelt thanks out to Willy for joining us. I think he did a really good job. You can't necessarily tell that he's not a native speaker, but just know it, now that you've listened to that interview, just what that's like in his head, trying to speak his second language in a format like this. It's no easy task, and he handled it as well as anybody can be expected to.
Willy is a pretty bright star in the Rays system. That's an organization that has known how to develop them for some time. But, beyond just being a guy who embraces his leadership role and dives into learning English and understands what is expected of him as a player, to go out and work out with Chris Archer over the offseason, a guy who has been lauded for his leadership qualities, for his personality, for the way he's been brilliant as a TV analyst for the postseason over the last couple of years. That's really cool. And if I'm a Rays fan, that shows me this kid's only 21. He was only in Double-A last year, but he is ready for the big time as far as the mental side of his game goes. And that's huge stuff for the Rays because that division is not going to get any easier to compete in. And they need guys like that to really step up. And Willy Adames is on that list. So with that, we'll put the wraps on episode number 98 of the show before the show. As Sam said, if you do have a prospect that you think is worth us covering, worth us talking to, get in touch. Podcast at MILB.com. Sam's on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am at Tyler Mon. You can tweet us there. And yeah, we'll as we get closer and closer to the season, we'll start putting together our list of guys that we're going to talk about in camp, talk to in camp when Sam heads to Florida and I head to Arizona. And man, this is a fun time of year.
Yeah, and this time next week we'll have even more actual games to talk about. I think a lot are coming down the pipe on Friday, beyond just your, big league team faces local college for opportunity that, for the college kids that they'll never forget it. But for us, it's not quite as interesting. So by the time we talk to you next week, I'm sure we'll actually be breaking down who has impressed us in the first slate of games which is just really gosh darn exciting.
Finally here. Episode 98, wrapping up. He's Sam. I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you next week.